checking out the video. Today I'm going to be talking about Lars Ulrich, and I'm going to be talking about his drum fills and specific just cool patterns that he did and everything. Now I know what a lot of people are thinking. Lars isn't the drummer he used to be. True, but in recent years he has gotten better. He has improved a little bit. You might also be thinking that there's a lot of other drummers that are better than Lars out there. True, nowadays, that's for sure. However, Lars is one of those drummers that influenced a lot of people to play drums, including myself. Learning drums at the time in peak when I was like listening to Metallica a lot, and it was just, Lars was very influential on me. And his drumming, you can't deny, there's some cool patterns and drum fills and everything else. We're going to start off with Hit the Lights, that roll across the times that he does, and just the opening to the song. It's just a really cool song, and the drums sound really good. And right there, for a first album, there was some pretty cool wicked drumming. Up next is Ride the Lightning, that little snare fill. That little snare fill thing that he does. It's simplistic, but it just has this cool groove to it. I like how he does that, and I like the sound of it. It's nothing that incredible, but just like with the rest of the album, there's all these other like cool parts on it. There's fast double bass on Fight Fire with Fire, and Trapped Under Ice, and just all the other fills and stuff like that. I can't do a sample on every single piece of all his fills and everything. This would be an hour-long video. But anyways, Ride the Lightning has some really cool drumming on it. And they definitely improved as musicians, and it was just the next step up. And you heard my whole last video there, one of my other videos, where I talk about how awesome Ride the Lightning is. Off Master of Puppets is the song Battery. Now a cool, fast, rocking thrash one here. And that drum fill that he does before the guitar solo, which just fit perfectly in there, and it's an awesome fill. Okay, so when I was learning how to play drums, I would just be sitting there either using a practicing pad or drumming on my bed and just trying to figure out, just trying to keep up with it. And then I was like, there was that one part that came up right before the pre-chorus, and I was just like, kept missing it. And I go, well, how the heck am I keep missing it? And I'm like, oh, it goes, obey your master. So it hits the snare on obey, tom, your, and then master, master. That has two syllables to it, so it was going tsh, 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 tsh. He was doing that. So it took a little while to figure that out. You know what I mean? It took several days before I noticed. And I'm like, oh, hey, that's what the heck's going on right there. And that was back in like 88 when I was practicing and trying to go over that song. It's important as a drummer not to only specifically listen to the drums, but you listen to that guitar riff or guitar part and or a vocal line to know when your next snare hit is, when your next splash, or what the heck ever, your next fill. You're sometimes like listening, okay, that's the cue right after this. You jump right into it. The other times when listening to the song Master of Puppets, I hear that Lars does this like, not really slow roll, but he does this like mid-tempo roll across the toms, and then Lars Ulrich does this like quick like roll across the toms, and then this quick like little, I don't want to say flam or flare, whatever the heck you want to call it, really quick. It sounds like on the rototoms, but of course it's a smaller toms that has this like really cool wicked sound, and it's this one like mid-tempo part, and it's this other like fast hit. I don't know if he did that on purpose, or if he just did it by accident in the studio and was just like, okay, that was cool, and just decided to leave it. Okay, and Justice for All. This is the album that did it for me, and this is the album that just had some wicked drumming on it. I knew Master Puppets relatively well, but once and Justice for All came out and I bought it, I was just, man, I listened to that thing for like several months straight before they came out with the music video. I bought it in like September of 1988. And while listening to it, I was just like, man, there's just so many wicked parts and drums on here. I was loving it. And of course, also discouraged by it too, because I was like, man, I'm never going to be this good. You know, when you're practicing drums, when you're playing drums, and then you hear just this wicked stuff, just like with any instrument, you're like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to learn that. But anyways, The song Black End, just that this little piece. See, that little part isn't really that specifically difficult, but people would do that. Oh yeah, that oh, Black End, and like, yeah, you know, people just memorized it, or it was memorable for that song. And that's one of the cool things about, you know, drummers like Lars, is that if you hear if you hear just the audio track only, and yes, I'm using drum track, so it might not be the drum track or the exact correct one. I think it is, I believe it is, I don't know. But anyways, when you listen to a song and you hear just the drums, and you can tell what song it is by the drums, that is a really cool, unique drum beat and thing for the song. Because there's lots of like drum beats where you don't even know what the heck song it is. If you were to test some of your friends out and say, yeah, listen to this drum track, it'd be kind of hard to figure out what song it was, especially if it was, you know, basic rock, early hard rock, early 80s stuff. So you know one, and I'm going to get to one in a minute, but you know there's a part on Injustice for All where Lars hits the double bass. He hits the double bass at the same kind of like speed as he does on one, but he does quicker hits on the snare. Or excuse me, does the quicker hits on the cymbals. So it's the part on Justice for All. So it's similar to one, but with one he like just slows everything down. But there's that quick little hit in there, and I don't know if that has anything to do with one or whatever, but is that kind of like same little pattern. He's going on double bass and then he hits the cymbals. Check it out. Another memorable part is the part in one where he's doing the double bass. So that part is also just like a wicked part, and it's, once again, you could tell what song it is just by the drums alone, and it's a wicked part that everybody loves. Here it is, in case you never heard. See, so by that time, like late 88, when I was playing the drums, I was like, oh, I noticed that he's kind of like mimicking the guitar. He'll do that. He does that several times on Injustice for All, including in Blacken and One and Harvester of Sorrow. So several songs that he's doing that on, and I'm like, oh, I see, he's mimicking the guitar. He also did it on like Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning, but I can't specifically think of what song right now. But I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool, neat thing, because not too many drummers back in the late 70s, early 80s were actually doing that. If you know of any song, band, or drummers that did that, please let me know in the comments below. So the whole double bass thing too was part of, you know, the hard rock and heavy metal thing, especially getting fast feet.
Put that fast. Is that because traditional drummers keep their heels down when they play, and you decided to lift your heels when you play? Does that have something to do with it?
I just didn't have it. So it shows you how much Howard Stern knows about drums. Every single drummer does that. It's just easier to do that, to put your foot flat, and to be putting your foot down and just having it flat. You know, you can feel it in your ankles. You'll feel the pain in your ankles like right away. Alright, Metallica's 1991 Black Album. When this album came out, also I was like, well, it's not as good as Injustice for All, but I kind of liked the songs. I mean, it was a slight of a sellout album. There was the slower songs and stuff. They toned it down and slowed down, but there were some really good songs off the Black Album. I do like the Black Album. And a lot of people love the intro for Enter Sandman. That's what a lot of people, that's another good example if you could tell what song it is. I was never huge on the opening for Enter Sandman. I didn't think it was that incredible. However, there's some really cool drums on this album. And of course, sad but true, this little hi-hat part that he does. This little hi-hat, I don't know what it's called, but he's hitting the hi-hat, double hit on the hi-hat. And he goes across the toms, and then he goes back to the hi-hat like twice. So it's just like this kind of confusing part, and it's just it's one of those other songs that would be difficult to learn, because you have to, you know, go back to the hi-hat and a couple quick hits on the hi-hat and across the toms. It's a wicked cool hi-hat fill if you want. I don't know how to tell. It's just a wicked pattern that he does across the toms and the hi-hat. It's some wicked hi-hat work right there. The Black Album, the song Wolf and Man. Another song that I really like. There's this wicked drum fill on here. Completely change it. So that was a cool drum fill right there. So I'm going to jump now ahead to 72 Seasons. 72 Seasons, I'm liking a lot more. I love it. It's better than Hardwired to Self-Destruct because of several songs. So it's just a more solid album. It's definitely better than the previous one. And then, of course, even the two other previous ones, which I won't even mention. So it's definitely better than that. It's definitely one of the best albums so far. So there's some cool drumming on it, like this right here. So a lot of people give Lars slack and everything, say he's not as good as he used to be and all that other stuff. That's true to an extent, but what Lars created, what he came up with, was really cool. And at the time, for me, I thought was incredible. And he was definitely one of my idols and one of my influences on drums. You know, listening to Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning and It Just Is Fall and those albums. Those are the albums that just, you know, made me, like, you know, really want to play drums and get into drums. He influenced a lot of drummers. He had some cool wicked parts, wicked patterns. He did the whole double bass thing. I know I don't expect him to be doing the fast double bass in every single song. It's good to hear it since he, you know, hasn't done it in a number of years. And, you know, laid off it for a while. But anyways, I think Lars is great. I think he's a good drummer. Tell me in the comment section below what you think about Lars Ulrich. What album do you think has his best drumming on it and stuff. You see, I got this because that older picture of me back in 1988 when I was hugely into Metallica and listening to Injustice for All. I took that picture and then, of course, just wanted to redo that and thought it would be cool for this video. Thanks for watching and see you.